This is Karen with NewClevelandRadio.net. And I'm not sure which program I'm going to have underwrite this podcast because since it took place sort of near Cafe Lena, I'm so tempted to put it on their site. But you know what? It has really not a lot to do with Cafe Lena, although you did some production work there, I saw. So then I thought, well, maybe it should go under lessons learned. But I'm not sure that's where it belongs. So I'm going to have a real hard time. It may go under every podcast we've ever done here. I have Kimberly with me from We the Nighthawks. And if you don't know what We the Nighthawks is, after you listen to this, you have to go out and you have to stream it because Kimberly, I don't know how all of you got together to produce this, but they couldn't have used anybody else's voice other than yours.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Karen.
So tell me a little bit about you. Before we went on air, you told me you're from Schenectady, New York. And a lot of us sort of like know where that is, but it's not a place that we would probably vacation at. So give us a little bit of background.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, Schenectady is about 2.5 hours directly north of Manhattan. So I always grew up, close enough to take a day trip and see all the Broadway shows in the city with my mom. And yeah, grew up in Schenectady, born and raised. It's the Electric City. It's where the GE plant and company is. Sort of like an industrial boom city that's had its phases of decline and rebirth. I think going through a rebirth now. I love it. It's just a great place. It's very central to if you want to go up to Canada, if you want to go to Manhattan, if you want to go to the Berkshires or the Catskills, the Adirondacks. So I grew up really central to all of that, and my world was very much like city life and then outdoors.
I
I'm
love it.
so torn.
I love it. So obviously, you've been in music for a while. And I sort of say that because I see some instruments behind you. So I'm assuming that you play as well as sing. But, I know going into the city, you probably were influenced by Broadway to some degree growing up. Um, but what made you decide that, hey, I'm going to use my voice, not just with words, but with melody?
Mm. Well, I've been singing since I was born, I guess. Yeah. Some may call it screaming or crying, but I was using my voice. But I was always drawn to the voice. I was always drawn to expressing myself that way, just sort of humming. And I started piano lessons when I was 4 years old. And to me, that always went hand in hand with the voice. I had a teacher when I was young who really fostered that connection. And we would learn Mary Had a Little Lamb on the piano, and I would sing it back. And then I would be laying in bed at night just singing Mary Had a Little Lamb over and over again. So I was definitely drawn to that mode of expression. And it stuck. I performed in theater as a child and throughout high school. I can't say why. It's just in me. Just expressing myself through the voice is just part of who I am.
And usually, a musician like yourself who really is dedicated to the craft will give that same response. I don't know why. It's just there. And you know what? That's what I want to do. And it's what I do well. And for our listeners, believe me, when you listen to Kimberly perform, um, it just takes you into another world. Uh, as I was mentioning prior to going live, there are so many recording artists today that the music is either louder than their voice or they're trying to reach every pitch in the world that, for me at least, words get distorted.
Mm.
And I saw a couple of the YouTubes that you guys put out there while you were recording, and it was like, wait a second, this is music that I can enjoy. Yeah, I
And
can
understand.
and understand, and I can hear the musicians, and it felt like, 100-piece orchestra.
It does. It does at times. It's very crafty what they did with the arranging. There were 20 musicians on that record on We the Nighthawks, but thanks to composer Lecco Morris and our pianist arranger Asaf Gleisner, they co-arranged the album. They were able to take, maybe at a time there were 12 people on a track and make it sound like a 60-person orchestra. One track in particular is I'll See You Again in Paris. That's one of my favorites. And the opening 30 seconds of that just sounds like a whole symphony.
Well, and I knew that there wasn't a whole symphony. And so this morning, and I've been listening to bits and pieces during the day, but haven't taken the time to really totally listen. So this morning, when I went for my morning walk, I thought, you know what? I've got it on my phone. Hey, I've got to listen to this. And it was amazing to me because I found myself just sauntering along at times, and all of a sudden I was moving faster and faster, and I realized I'm going with the music. And again, I kept thinking, where did this whole orchestra come from?
Yeah.
Just unbelievable.
Thanks. I love that you tapped into that journey. Sometimes you'll hear an album and, it's clear that it's the same performer, the same style all the way through. It's kind of like, I don't want to say a plateau, but I myself am really drawn to a full album that takes you on a journey that has this rise and fall and crescendo and development and surprises at every turn. Yes. I just love to create that for myself. So I'm glad that you experienced a little bit of that on your walk.
it was just totally, it was amazing to me because so much music I listen to, I get all the words wrong. And my husband blames on the fact that I wear hearing aids. And it's like, no, I understand TV. I understand movies. But music, sometimes it just gets muffled for me. And this album just is crystal clear.
Oh, thanks. I think there is a trend in music, and sometimes I'm drawn to that, where you are sort of obscuring the voice and making it blend in because you don't want anything to stand out too much. It's almost like the music is trying to play it cool. And there's a place for that for sure. But I'm going to a very uncool place, which is the music of the past, of, the 30s and 40s and Broadway and jazz. And when singers were singing mostly in their speaking range. And it was about the story and connection. I love that stuff.
So Lecco Morris, who put this together, okay, or one of the main individuals who put it together, has to be quite young. At least I'm assuming he is from his pictures. And yet he went to a time and place that was way before him. And he's brought it into today. Do you know what his reasoning was for that?
Well, this is a multi-step process. And it actually began with the lyricist, Justin Rivers. The three of us are from the Schenectady area. I only just met Justin through this project early last year in 2020. But Justin is a prolific writer and lyricist and musician himself. And he has a whole backlog of lyrics that weren't being used. And so he called upon Lecco, who he went to NYU for composition. He's a pianist as well. We're actually there's a lot of pianists involved in this project, a lot of musicians. And said, here, I have these songs for you, like, have fun, see what you can do with them. And Lecco described the process as just sort of sitting at the piano and the music just flowing out, the melodies coming out first. And he thought of me right away to sing them, to channel these songs. And so when he called me, he's like, "Yeah, I've got like, I don't know, 5 or 6 of these songs. Let me send them over." He notated them out, and this was at the start of the pandemic, so this was all virtual, and I was at home on my keyboard and playing through them and listening to his demos, and I'm like, wow, I've never heard anything like this before. It's sort of jazzy, but not. It's sort of classical, but it's still accessible, and it still uses, storytelling, and it's just I was very intrigued by the music. So once I put them into my voice, I was like, wow, this is cool. And this is also very challenging to sing. And I'm a sucker for a challenge. I like, I'll get going and I'm like, why did I get into this? This is so hard. But I've really grown through these songs as well. And I've discovered a big part of myself. It feels like coming home for all of us. And what I love most about this process is that it's been so effortless. And we were coming out of years of like struggling and pushing as artists and musicians and just trying to like find your way through. The one good thing about the past year has been just the settling of the dust, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And you find the people you're supposed to find. There's nothing getting in the way. It's almost like a psychic channel is opened and you just find those collaborators. And it happened with a lot of love and patience and dedication, but for the most part, pretty effortless. It's on sort of a magical level for me.
Well, I mean, the whole album is magical. And you also recorded it in a very magical place.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Dreamland in Woodstock. Yeah. Decades of incredible musicians and history. And it's in an old church and beautiful stained glass, great vibes. Very, very magical. And one of the few places that would let us be socially distanced and record in last December.
Well, and it was quite interesting watching some of the online videos that were posted while you guys were rehearsing and putting everything together, because you could absolutely tell that you were being socially distant, musicians playing with masks on, those who could play with a mask on.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And you could see, from the view of the camera too, that nobody was really next to each other. And yet, for some of us in other cities, we were already starting to come together, just as you were still socially distant in New York.
Mm-hmm.
And it just was amazing to think how this all came together, like you said, how much you did virtually before you all came together, but yet you came together, but you sort of still had to be separated.
Yeah.
And in those joyous moments, you didn't get to, give each other those hugs and those high fives that
That's
normally
right. That's right. It's just the wave from across the room.
So, how did they get all these musicians together? Are they individuals that they knew, or did you recommend people? I mean, how did this all happen?
A little bit of both, but Lecco is pretty much at the center of the personnel sphere. He sort of act as a sort of like behind the scenes producer to bring people together and to organize the effort and to book the studio and to plan the timeline. It was really quite a lot of work because we had 4 days in the studio, and this meant artists coming and going at different times, making sure that there were never more than 5 people in the dining room at once. So like staggering breaks and things like that, and who had to stay over and who was traveling back and forth. A lot of the musicians are from the Albany area. Our bassist, Dylan Perillo, is from Albany. Reese Tivey on trumpet, Adam Siegel on saxophone. Jameson Ross, our drummer, flew in from New Orleans. He's a contact that Lecco had from his time spent in New Orleans. And the pianist arranger, Asaf Gleisner, is my co-band leader for some other projects, and he and I have been collaborating together for about 10 years now. And he was the first person that I thought of to help bring this music
Sure.
to life and to arrange it for the orchestra.
And you mentioned that you and Lecco grew up very close to each other, but never knew each other growing up.
We knew each other a little bit. He
Okay.
moved to the Stockade area of Schenectady, where I grew up. This was the historic Dutch influenced waterfront, like all old homes, like 200 years old. It's a very cool neighborhood. So we did live 3 blocks away from each other, and we were known as the like the musical kids of the neighborhood. But we went to different schools, and we knew of each other. We played together maybe once or twice. We saw each other at a community holiday party, and tried to stay in touch a little bit throughout college and beyond. And we were just never in the same place at the same time. We were like inviting each other to our gigs, and it just never worked out.
So you also mentioned that you and the keyboard artist, pianist, worked together on other projects. So what is interesting to a lay person like myself, when we see this massive, wonderful album come together, we think, oh, well, these people work together all the time. This is their one and only, group. But that's not true in the music industry, is it?
No, no, it's actually quite amazing that we had so many people that we had worked with before. There are so many times when I'm just like, oh, my regular people aren't available. Let me play with this person and this person tonight. I've never met them, but we're gonna get together and no rehearsal and just make music. And that happens all the time. But this was really great. I did get to meet some new musicians, and still got to work very closely with Asaf, who is just an accompanist like no other. He is really a singer's pianist. He is able to take your voice and almost like translate it for the rest of the group and just like make everything work. He's sort of a mind reader. He knows what you're going to sing before you actually sing it.
So where are you guys going to take this wonderful production? I mean, it belongs on Broadway.
I think so too. I think it's going to transform into a hybrid concert theater experience. It doesn't just belong in the jazz club. I think that's, definitely perform it in clubs. We can definitely perform it like full on theater, but I think it's a hybrid. It's something a little bit different. Although we are seeing more and more of that, like off-Broadway shows that are theatrical concerts. I think it has the potential, and I'm definitely leaning into that theater element because I think these stories can be brought to life even more when you consider lighting and sound design and those elements that just dig a little bit deeper than a traditional concert.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what is next on your agenda? Because we can't let that voice just stop with We the Nighthawks.
Oh, thank you. Wow. Well, I do a lot of mentoring and teaching. So my next month is incredibly busy wrapping up lessons for the semester through the end of June. And I've got some little local performances coming back, kind of scattered, but we're looking ahead to August and beyond for something bigger with We the Nighthawks, for bigger performances. We do have something pending in Albany on August 17th and some dates around there. So it's coming, but it's, we're being very like deliberate and patient in the process. I think a lot of musicians went from this crazy hectic gig life where you don't have a second to think, is this something I want to do? Is this a gig I want to take? You just get in the habit of accepting everything, just performing until you're burned out. And I've noticed among a lot of my musical friends that we're all sort of like, we're excited to perform again, but we're not so eager to jump back into that lifestyle. We're like, you know what? I think I'm going to take fewer gigs. They're going to pay me better. I'm going to do a better job.
Makes
And yeah, and we're going to raise the value of this a little bit more for everybody involved.
Well, that certainly makes a lot of sense. Now, I heard you mention, maybe in August,
Mhm.
um, and we're planning on being up in the area sometime in the fall. So hopefully there will be a performance around that time. But interestingly enough, my son is thinking about being up there right around that time.
Oh,
So
great.
I know he will make sure that, if you guys are performing anywhere close to Saratoga Springs, he will be there. He loves music and he's performed himself, but he has chosen to take another path in life.
Mhm.
And because being a musician's not easy.
No, it's not easy. And I've been on, several different paths. I've worked, full time for arts organizations and desk jobs and things like that. And it's all good. It's just different. And I was feeling a calling, like a really true calling to step away from that. But I know a lot of people get the other way around, where they do what they need to do when they're young, and then they get the calling to step away and go to something else.
Well, I'm
Just
sure we're
listening.
I'm sure we're going to be hearing a lot more of you and your voice. And please let go know that, I mean, I idolize him for doing this. Um, I haven't been so touched by music in a very long time.
Mhm.
There's only one other song that was shared with me this past year that has grabbed me. And you know, when something means that much to you, you just want to share it with the rest of the
Mhm.
world. So it's called We the Nighthawks. You are on just about every streaming platform.
Mhm.
I recommend that if you want to listen to it, please pay for the streaming platform because otherwise, Kimberly is not going to be able to fill that cup that she has, even with water. So,
That's right.
um,
Thank you.
too many of us see it's such an easy road. Hey, I'm just going to
Mhm.
download it. But you
Mhm.
know what? When you can purchase it, you should purchase it when they're out there doing a live performance. You need to get to the live performance and support the beautiful music.
Thank
So
you. Yeah, thank
thank
you
you
for
for
that.
being with us. And if you come and perform in Cleveland, I'll be in the front row, I promise.
I would love that. Yeah, I'll let you know.
All right, hon. You take care. Say hi to everybody for us,
I
okay?
sure will.
Have a
Thank
good
you. Thanks,
day.
Karen.
Yeah.
You too.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.